Let's roll. Welcome to the Combat Sports Report. I am Gabriel Morency on the SportsGrid radio and television networks and all the other platforms that you are watching us on. Obviously, as you know, this is our first time doing this show as we step up and in for Brian Ciano, an on-air Mafia who did an awesome job, passionate fight fan, and we'll try to continue the passion on the program moving forward with all your favorite fighters, guests, picks, interviews, editorials, and everything else in between. So let's get started right now with one of the most respected media members in the mixed martial arts community because he's authentic and he's been doing it for years. And he's got the best one-on-one interviews with fighters that are just starting out to UFC champions. James Lynch, Lynch on Sports, steps up and in. James, thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us on our inaugural Combat Sports Report program. How you doing? Thanks a lot for joining us, my man.
Well, I'm doing a lot better after that intro, Gabe. What an intro. I really appreciate it. And I got some big shoes to fill, but thanks for having me on, man. It's good to catch up with you. This is like MMA Meltdown circa 2025 at this point, right?
Well, that's it. You know what? Everything comes full circle, actually, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. I'm getting flashbacks to MMA Meltdown, and, of course, we hosted an MMA show for many years. It was very popular, and it was a ton of fun at the Fight Network, and, you know, the live pay-per-views, and, you know, we've had a lot of fun and a lot of experience over the years in mixed martial arts, but it's a new world right now, James. It's a new world, and I'll be the first to admit it. You know, like my peak era was, you know, the Rich Franklin, Chuck Liddell, Heath Herring, Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar, you know, that's sort of the UFC 100 era, you know, the Vanderleys and the Dan Hendersons, sort of the crossover of the old school into the new school. But how many fighters were under contract in those days? 180, 150, 90, you know what I mean, etc. How many fighters are under contract now? And not to mention all the other global leagues and fight companies that are thriving right now.
Yeah, it's totally changed, and I'm with you. I sound like the old man on the lawn, I'm sure at this point, but they just do too many events right now, and I think what it means to be a UFC fighter means a lot less now than it did way back when. I remember it took you a while to get in the UFC. It was a big deal. Now they're signing guys just to fill up cards with the ESPN deal. As great as it's been that the UFC's become mainstream, it's also been tough to watch because you're seeing these cards diluted, they're watered down because they're doing too many events, and they have so few options to fill up these cards. They don't have time to build up stars. We're seeing, obviously some names out there, but you are speaking my language, Gabe. I can't agree more with, some of the names we used to see back in the day, how excited and anticipated you would get for every single card that would come up. Now it's just like, we just had Dustin Poirier retire. Now we're on to the next one. Like, it just goes too quickly. And listen, like, I love covering the sport, not complaining for a second about getting to do this for a living, but it's definitely changed a lot from back when, you and I used to, enjoy the golden years, so to speak.
Now, one thing that hasn't changed, and I don't think it'll ever change, you got to believe that since the creation of mankind and the fight game, that the ranking system's been subjective, and somebody always feels as though they're not being treated fairly. We've seen the Ali Act, and we've seen a lot of different approaches about how rankings work. But the fact is, James, we could do this, we could do that. It comes down to popularity. It always has, and it almost always will. Yet we're almost in an era right now with AI and as much information and data as we have that there's got to be a different way of doing it. And I know you've been talking about this. Dana White is on record as saying that he wants Zuckerberg and Meta and AI to take over rankings. He obviously enjoys belittling the media that does it. As I stated, the rankings, I think a lot of people in the media have done their best and they're sincere, but the company doesn't really respect these rankings. And I've always said this, James, it's almost like American Idol. When they say, okay, call in and vote for who you want to win, you can call in and vote for all you want. They're the one stuck with the person, right, that has to put the person on tour and has to sell the person after. So they're going to pick the one that they think they can make the most money with. Where do we go from here? Topology says that they have a revolutionary ranking system right now that'll take strength of schedule, quality of victory, how you won, how long it took, and it'll actually be a fair gauge and indication of where you're ranked, and it'll help fighters to match make, and it'll help everybody. Dana wants to go with the AI stuff with Meta here. What's your opinion on this, James? And what does the future of rankings hold? And I say the future, the near future.
So a couple things. The Tapology rankings, yes, they came out yesterday. This was pretty interesting. Now, these are computer generated. They're not used. So it's kind of closer to what Dana wants, which is sort of the AI meta generated. These are based off a number of things and obviously some factors as well. And I took a look at the rankings yesterday. I did a video on this on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/LynchOnSports, and kind of looked at how they came up with the rankings. And I did sort of a split by split comparing the Tapology rankings to the UFC. Now, I will say overall, I think they are generally better. I think the way they've, factored certain fighters in with how they've done their rankings has been good, but it's not perfect. For just as a quick example, they have right now at flyweight on Tapology, they have Joshua Van ranked number 3. They have Brandon Royval ranked number 2. Joshua Van just beat Brandon Royval. I have a hard time having a guy that just won his last fight ranked lower than a fighter that he lost to. I just, and again, if you're going to factor in overall wins, I guess I understand that, but I think that's a tough sell. The other thing I don't like about the Tapology rankings as well, and again, overall, I do enjoy them. They still have Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria ranked at featherweight. Now, we know Max Holloway's been very vocal. He's not going back down to featherweight. I suppose he would go down if there was a title opportunity, but it's pretty much known he's not going to come back. And same thing with Ilia Topuria. In fact, the reason he moved up was because he felt like he was cutting too much weight and it was hurting his performances. And so that's why he wanted to move up to lightweight. And there's no indication that he's going to move back down. The reason I have a problem with that is I don't mind if you want to acknowledge that he's there, or where he was ranked before, but you've got guys that are actually fighting in that weight class regularly that are going to be there for a long time. They're not getting their spots in that top 15 because you have a Topuria there ranked at number 2 or whatever he is on Tapology. So they have some flaws, but the one thing I do feel like they do a better job of is just sort of looking at fighters that are active, the quality of opposition. For example, I've always said this, if you're a fighter that hasn't competed for over a year, I think you should remember where you are in the rankings, but take them out. You should reward activity. If a fighter fights 3 times a year, a fighter fights 1 time a year, how do you determine, to me, you should reward the fighter who's being more active. Like a Colby Covington, who, don't get me wrong, very big name, obviously successful career. He barely fights, and he's holding up a spot on guys in that division at welterweight that are also competing quite frequently. So these are things that I think they need to take a look at. The way the UFC does their rankings now, just so people are aware, is they have a panel of media members who do this for free, which that's a whole other topic of where you want to pay them or not. There's a conflict of interest there. But the problem is, Gabe, is that most of the people voting aren't regular media members. They aren't people regularly going to the events. They're people that were selected, I'm not even joking, like almost a decade ago or 2 decades ago, that are still on the rankings panel, still voting. And there's no evidence if they're even credible at this point. How often are they even watching the fight? So there's a lot of problems with it. And then add in that other layer, which you just said off the top to finish off my long-winded answer here, is that Dana doesn't pay attention to the rankings. We've had a number of situations. Last year with Magomed Ankalaev not getting to fight Alex Pereira. They went with Khalil Roundtree. This year, we're seeing it with Movsar Evloev, essentially getting passed over for Diego Lopez. So there are the UFC at the end of the day calls the shots, and you're right. They factor in entertainment over rankings, it seems.
And, part of me, I can't criticize them for it, because it's almost like the public, they've created this, right? You got to give the public what they want, so to speak. And it's interesting. We'll continue on the other side, because I saw the Tapology guy said this should be like the football. There shouldn't be bias in it. It should just be if you win or lose.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperformed somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where he drafted quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shador's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every time he's there, he just finds a way, and he's going to break through. Look at Cameron Young. Cameron Young was one of those guys, too. Remember Cameron Young? Second in the Open Championship, fourth, plays great in majors, almost won the Canadian Open again. I seen this guy play live. I'm like, how does this guy not have a win? And then last week, Kev, you saw what he did. He put his foot on your throat, wrestling style. He didn't just win, he murdered the competition last week.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They're already pretty solid up top, but you had the bottom that's that much better with Ryan O'Hearn and Lariano. We now have a well-rounded lineup on top of a great pitching staff. Michael King is expected to start making his rehab starts. So you have him plus Pavetta plus Dylan Cease. Darvish is back. You have the frontline pitching, the depth of the lineup, and now a great bullpen. You have it all.
I really like it. I do. Sometimes I get caught up in the Padres because of what they can be.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report. I am Gabriel Morency. We're breaking it down with Lynch on Sports, James Lynch. Great coverage of all different fight leagues and great fighter interviews. And in fact, James spoke to numerous fighters that are fighting on the UFC card this week. But before we get to that, just talking about the rankings system, it's funny that you said, you can't have a fighter who lost to a fighter ranked ahead of somebody. And I can't help but chuckle and think, welcome to the college football world, right? With the rankings. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what sport it is, James, right? Yeah. With the rankings. And same thing. Well, they're actually better, even though they lost to them. And then people start to explain to you, and then you start to wonder, well, isn't it about winning and losing? And I know Topology was talking about saying, they said, the NFL playoffs is in a popularity contest. A team makes the playoffs even if they're not popular, or let's say technically they're boring, right, James? But the fight game is different, and we can, purists can talk about it doesn't matter if you're boring. It doesn't matter if you don't sell. It doesn't matter if you don't speak English, which is a nightmare for the UFC that they have so many fighters that in their mind, they just can't sell, right, James? I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I get that part of that. I know there's that entertainment aspect of it as well, but there's got to be a happy medium here. I think a lot of people felt like Sean O'Malley immediately getting his rematch against Merab after not taking a fight in between.
Like Muhammad waiting as long as they do, right? The Leon Edwards waiting. There's cases where it's like, come on, we get you think he's boring. We get you don't like him, but he's won 9 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand that. And getting back quickly to your, if a fighter loses, I can understand if a fighter's lost maybe 5 years ago to a certain fighter, and then you want to have the other fighter ranked ahead of them. But that example I just gave with Brandon Royval, he just fought him in July. Come on, and he's ranked ahead of him. And I'm a huge Brandon Royval fan, but that's a little ridiculous in my opinion. Joshua Van should be ranked ahead of him. So we got to get that word out there, Gabe, and let him know you can't have fighters coming off losses ahead of someone else.
Now, and I don't want to do the greatest, the best ever debate or anything like that, but something that you said about inactivity to me, and that's the knock on John Jones. If we want to talk about John Jones from a fighting perspective, he's the best, right? He hasn't lost. He's had some close fights, forget, the Hamill, disqualification, etc. But it's easier not to lose if you only fight every 2-3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
George St. Pierre, used to fight every 3 months, every 6 months. Next man up. It used to just sort of be next man up, and they didn't play games. And it'd be like, all right, this is the next toughest guy. I'm going to fight him, and I want to get paid, so let's do it. Now it's like, well, I'm the champion and I'm going to try to hang on to this belt and stay in my house and not fight for as long as, I can to try to hang on to this.
Yeah. No, and the other thing that's stalling divisions as well, how many times now we're hearing about champions wanting to move up a weight class or fight for another belt? That, unfortunately, was because of Conor McGregor, and you're seeing fighters going, I can make more money if I move up, right? So George St. Pierre, was there ever talk about him moving up on his own accord? Never. It was all about him defending his title at 170. He fought the who's who, the killers. I want to go back to that era where fighters defended their belts. They had a consistent schedule. There wasn't all this other politics that go on beside it as well, which is, I want to be a double champ or all this, right? Like, this is what we were used to back in the day, and now it's completely changed. Like, I'm hearing people, fans even talking now, well, hey, if Chimaev wins at 319, what about him moving up to light heavyweight? It's like, he hasn't even won the belt yet at 85, guys. Slow your roll on this one. Let's see fighters defend in their division first, and then we can have those talks.
Yeah, great point, James. It is super. It cannibalizes fighters. It shatters their confidence. Sometimes they're not the same. They lose. They go to a different weight class. And there's a lot of these records of consecutive championship defenses that'll last forever, James, because like you said, dude, a guy wins 1 or 2 fights in a division now, and fans, you should move up, right? They want to see that super fight all the time. And quite frankly, a lot of fighters, they don't really care about the belt. It's about money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? But it's, it's like, can I make more money? Like, I can handle losing. And I understand it. The shelf life is pretty short. Okay, James, so you spoke, and I saw very impressive this week. You spoke to Andre Philly. Did you speak to Eric Anders? I saw you spoke to numerous fighters that are on the card this week, right?
Yeah, a couple. Anthony Hernandez being sort of the most notable one. He's in the main event against Roman Dolidze. Right when the fight was announced, got a hold of Anthony. I've known him since dating back to when he fought in LFA. So it's really cool to watch him in this opportunity here on Saturday, because a win here, we're getting closer and closer to a possible title shot at 185. And, anytime you're in a main event for the UFC and you win impressively, that's always leading to big things there. As far as the interviews, no like major takeaways and stuff from some of the fighters that I talked to this week. One being Julius Walker. I know who's on this card. He's a heavy favorite in his fight, is training in Vegas. So curious to see if the camp switch up for him has helped in this fight. But again, you're getting him at I think minus 610, not really a ton of value there. But there's a couple spots on this weekend's card that I think could be interesting from a betting perspective. I do like the Anthony Hernandez by decision prop. Roman Dolidze, if you look at his career, he is a tough guy. He's never actually been finished. And Anthony Hernandez, he does finish his opponents, but you even look at the Pereira fight, it was a little bit later. You're getting Anthony Hernandez by decision at plus 230. Those are some great odds as opposed to taking him straight up. The other one you saw there in the graphic there, Chris Leroy Duncan, and Eric Anders. I like the over in that fight. Anders is another guy that's tough to finish. A lot of people are expecting Chris Leroy Duncan to get it done. I'm in that camp as well, but you look at most of his wins, they're by decision. Just in case Anders turns back the clock here, he did look good against Chris Weidman. I like the over here. You're getting it under 2-1. I like both those plays for this Saturday.
And as far as Anders is concerned, I was somewhat surprised to see, and I get it. I expected it to be an underdog, but a plus 400 underdog, James.
Yeah.
Plus 400. Yeah. Like, he's being set up as a mark here, so to speak, against Leroy Duncan. Anders has that experience. Any takeaways from speaking to Eric earlier in the week?
Yeah, so the big thing with him is over the last couple of years, he's had a lot of addiction problems outside the cage, and that's sort of been under control now. So he's basically having his entire camps at home base in Alabama. He's been working really well. You can just even see from his interviews, he just seems like he's talking clearer and things are more sort of level-headed. So we saw glimpses of that in the last fight against Chris Weidman. I agree. I think there's value on Anders. Another guy I think there's some value, Ode Osborne, huge underdog against Steve Erceg. I think Ode could surprise some people too in the co-main event.
James Lynch on Sports. Check out the YouTube page. Follow him on X. Awesome stuff, James. Thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. Anytime, man. I'll always make time for you, man. Appreciate it.
It was great to have James on the Combat Sports Report. Check him out online. He's got some great info.
They actually had a really great quarter this past quarter, and they're crediting what they're calling a smarter approach to sports betting and player quality, not just being lucky and being on the winning side of more bets. course, the past 2 quarters have been really bad for sportsbooks, which just got hammered in the NFL playoffs, and then that continued into March Madness. But it looks like Q2 is shaping up to be much better for them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Joey Ohtani's only seen him 7 times, 7 at-bats. He's got a home run against him. I've been pretty good at jumping in and out with Ohtani. I don't take him to hit a home run every day. The odds are good enough tonight, Scott, at plus 230 to entice me. I've got a bet on Ohtani's season home run prop at 43.5, which, he's nearly there.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It was already pretty solid up top, but you had the bottom that's that much better with Ryan O'Hearn and Lariano. Like, we now have a well-rounded lineup on top of a great pitching staff. Michael King is expected to start making his rehab starts. So you have him, plus Pivetta, plus Dylan Cease. You Darvish is back. You have the frontline pitching, the depth in the lineup, and now a great bullpen. You have it all.
I really like it. Like I do. Like sometimes I get caught up in the Padres because of what they can be.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
We don't care where you were drafted. You outperform somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where you draft a quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabriel Morency. We're going to get into some BKFC in a couple of minutes, and it's coming to Edmonton, actually. So we'll give you a heads up as far as the card and ticket information. But we were just speaking with Lynch on Sports, James Lynch, about UFC Fight Night this Saturday. And Anthony Hernandez, some minus 334 favorite in the main event against Dolizé, plus 250. Over under 3.5. This is a very chalky card, right? I mean, this is the parlay special, but it's also the parlay buster special type of card. Like, how many fights are actually like, are there any fights? Like, there's not one fight that is a near pick'em, right? Like, the lowest odded fight is minus 200. Like, you want to talk about a chalky card. This is a chalky card, but these are the type of cards. There's always the parlay buster. I don't care what sport it is, right? Whether you're betting a baseball parlay, I'm going to take 4 baseball favorites. Yeah, do all 4. How often do all 4 of them win? There's always the parlay buster. So, and it's always that landmine that you got to avoid, right? You know what I mean? So Anthony Hernandez, James Lynch said that he likes him by decision. The over-under is 3.5 in this fight. I think it gets there as well. I think this fight's going to go over 3.5, minus 120 to the over. Steve Erceg. This fight, you know what, there's been different opponents and, changes. And anytime that stuff happens, it's always sort of a red flag for me. I wouldn't want to lay minus 550, but I think he wins. Osborne. And I don't know if there's ever a time, like, it's like you go to the racetrack and you're going to bet on a horse like Ozzy Osbourne. It's not Ozzy, but it's Odie. It's close enough. Odie Osborne. Let's ride the crazy train. Plus 400. As I stated, like, there's a lot of fighters on this card that it's one of those that, yeah, they should be favorites, but not by that much. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to, like, risk it and, sprinkle on the underdog or try to put some favorite parlays together. Angela Hill, this is the fight that's actually, she's like the shortest underdog, plus 170 against Lucinda. Over-under is 2.5, minus 600. Minus 600. So just from a betting perspective, this is almost like, betting, MMA betting 101 here. Okay, so we got Angela Hill's an underdog at plus 170. The total of the fight is 2.5, minus 600 to the over. So in other words, the odds makers, everybody believes that this is a sure shot, stone cold lock, that it's going to go the distance. So if it's going to go the distance, then the underdog has a chance, right? You know what I mean? If a fight is like 1.5 and it's a big favorite, it's like, well, nah, they don't think the fighter's going to last very long even. Well, the odds makers are telling us, yeah, Angela Hill's going to last the fight. I mean, this is youth versus veteran, veteran presence, etc. But Angela Hill plus 170, could be a live dog here when you consider the total is minus 600, right? This is just sort of reading between the lines, so to speak, reading between the numbers. Andre Feely is a plus 200 underdog. Here's another fight against Christian Rodriguez. I think this fight's going to go over the 2.5, but it's minus 225. Like even the totals are chalky this week. Miles Johns and Matsumoto. I was looking. This is going to be a fun fight, actually. The Dana White Contender Series fighters going head to head here. The thing is, I like Matsumoto. I think he's going to win the fight, but I don't think he should be a minus 300 favorite. A very, very, like I said, very chalky card this week. Eric Anders. So James Lynch interviewed Eric Anders earlier in the week. For those of you that hear the name Eric Anders as well, a little bit of a crossover, and you heard him say, hey, I spoke to him in Alabama. Eric Anders is actually a national champion on the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. He was a linebacker, won a national championship years ago with Alabama. One of the, I'm going to say one of the first football players, but one of the first influx of football players that got into mixed martial arts. And if you'll notice, there's no carryover to this. Like, how many football players have been very, very, successful mixed martial artists? How many? Right? Seriously. Alvin St. Preux? Okay, he's okay. He's pretty good. You know what I mean? He played, he was a defensive lineman with the Tennessee Volunteers. Matt Mitrione. Remember Matt Mitrione from years ago? He was okay. He wasn't bad, right? But not overly successful. You figure, there's got to be a football player to cross over and be a mixed martial artist, but it really hasn't been there. So Anders, big underdog here, plus 400. We'll have some best bets for you throughout the week for this card. UFC Fight Night. Combat Sports Report continues.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
He comes back, and what we're talking about, mid-August at that point, and then he gets a couple more starts and they're ready for the postseason. So right now, I would say probably not an issue long-term. Obviously change the lines of what we're going to see today. I haven't seen the lines reopen, at least on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're locked right now, so not an issue right now. As long as he comes back and he still has that plant leg and he's still strong with that, probably no worries for the Brewers right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You have to imagine it'll be Rory and Tommy. So that is just such a strong foursomes pairing. And then I look over here at the Americans. I'm like, golly, if Patrick Cantlay, they just need him to make the team because you got Scotty and Russell. If Xander's going out, you have to him and Pat have been so good in the foursomes. Bryson's going to have to play. Who's he going to play with?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Out of 30 teams, Gabe, only 10 have a winning record against left-handed pitchers. 10-19, and there's one team that's 12-12.
See, I think it's the Yankees. Yeah. See, I didn't know the exact number, Scott, but I would have, I knew where you were going with this, in which there's just not as many left-handed hitters. They're not as good against them.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabriel Morency on the SportsGrid Radio and Television Network. Let's do this thing BKFC style with a man that's coming off an epic win, complete throwdown, fought like in a phone booth with razor blades, basically. An epic second-round knockout over Ryan Peterson. The disciple, Dustin Pague, steps up and in. And first things first, congratulations on the win. It was an epic win, but congratulations are in order. Another year in the books, Dustin. The disciple. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. I appreciate that. Big 38, man. I'm getting old.
You know what? My birthday's in a couple of days, bro. So we're in the same Lions den here, and I don't want to admit how old I'm getting, bro, right now. But it's been a pretty good summer for you, though, hasn't it been? From the win, you know, your birthday, time at the beach, time with your family. It seems like you're having a kick-ass summer, my man.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm very blessed. We're having a blast. Kids are great. Family's healthy and happy. So, you know, I'm on cloud 9. Things are going well.
So talk to me about the fight and how quickly you healed, because I saw you do a video a couple of days after the fight, and you were looking pretty good. I guess that's like the badge of honor, though. Like your Instagram, man. Like you got the ultimate pictures for life now. You know, you did it with one eye, but I still see it a little bit slanted here. But how's the eyesight? How's it coming? And how long is that going to keep you out for?
I don't think it's going to be very long. I already took out my stitches a couple nights ago. It's healing really well. It does look like I have a little squint to it. I don't know what that's about. It might just be some residual swelling. As far as vision, I see perfectly fine. So my vision came back later that night after the fight. It was blurry, but I was able to see out of my eye again. So all is well, man. I heal pretty quick.
How hard is it fighting with one eye? Like, you know, like not to think about it, do you start to freak out a little bit? I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be blind? I can't see in one eye. Not to mention the angles, bro. So you getting lit up because you can't protect yourself in the same way, right? What's it like when you have one eye? Does it feel like you're fighting with one arm almost because you can't see all sides?
It was a little mixture of everything. So the reason I took a knee, I felt fine. I did. The punch didn't daze me. Like, you know, my brain was great, but it was the weirdest feeling. I knew something was seriously wrong because my vision, it wasn't like blood was in my eye. It completely went black as it could be. And for a second, I thought my eyeball was popped out. That's the panic that set in because it was the whole left side of my face was numb and my sight was completely gone out of my left eye. So I'm looking on the canvas trying to see an eyeball popped out. Yeah,
well,
so that was
you're literally looking to see if your eye's on the mat, right? Man, that's insane.
Yeah, so if you rewatch it, you can kind of see me like shaking my head, seeing if anything's dangling. And I heard the ref counting, so I stood up. I said to myself, okay, if my eyeball's out, the ref's going to wave and he'll be like, oh my gosh, it's over. So when he asked, are you okay to continue? I said, yep, my eye must be in.
So that's too good. You put your faith in the ref. Hey, if I'm about to die, they're going to tell me. They're going to tell me if my eyeball is rolling around. That is insane. Yeah. That's flipping through. So then after, how long did it take you to sort of get out of that and say, okay, I'm good to go. I'm good to go. And that's a lot of fear there. How do you overcome that fear of like, what the hell just happened to me?
You know what? I figured like, okay, my eye took some damage. It probably, you know, your eyes are crazy the way they work. Cause our oldest got shot in the eye with a Nerf gun and he had some trauma, and your vision, your eye actually shuts down when it experiences like serious trauma. So I kind of figured, okay, my eye's not falling out. I'm okay. It's not working right now, but we'll figure that out later. I still got one good eye. So after the doc told me, he said, hey, if it gets any worse, I'm going to stop this fight. I said, all right, then I'm going to fight this guy one eye and I'm going to end it as fast as I can. So that was my mindset going into the second round. I knew my eye wasn't looking pretty. So I said, all right, I'm swinging for the fences. We're going to end this before it gets too bad and get stopped. So that's what I did.
Now, you fought in Las Vegas before. You fought at the MGM Grand. You know, obviously, people know you from The Ultimate Fighter. A lot of mixed martial arts fans know you from The Ultimate Fighter. But how cool was it fighting BKFC in Philadelphia? Right? You know, basically, your backyard. You know what I mean? Great fight town. You're a big boxing fan. You were a boxer as a kid, right? You know, great boxing history, great fight town. Carter talked about, hey, I don't know, this is like, I can't think of a better city for BKFC almost than Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
How cool was it? And like friends, family, what was it like fighting there?
Oh, it's phenomenal, man. It's a skip away from me. It took me like an hour and 40 minutes to drive there, which is always nice, better than, you know, hours of flight time. So it's an easy trip for me. I got a lot of friends and family that can make the trip and can afford it. So there's nothing better than fighting in essentially your hometown with your loved ones in the crowd. And like you said, Philly fans are a whole nother level, and they bring the energy. So it's always an honor to fight for those people.
Why do you think BKFC is getting as popular as it is? And it seems like, you know, it's for the hardcore, pure fight fan, but popular with fighters as well. Like, it, you know, and pardon the pun, because I know how religious you are and how, you know, your faith is important to you, Dustin, but it's been a godsend for you and so many fighters to give them an outlet that, you know what, maybe, you know, full mixed martial arts was not offering that outlet. And they're just letting you guys get in there and do your thing and beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, and it's so entertaining because what's more badass than two human beings with no gloves on slugging it out? Even, you know, not so talented fighters in the BKFC, you know, the lower level guys that don't have the experience of fighting, they're still exciting to watch. Very rarely do you watch a BKFC fight that is boring, you know? Whereas in the MMA world, they could be high class, high level, talented fighters, but there's certain parts of an MMA match that could be boring to the viewer. You know, if they're grappling on the ground and, you know, in a stalemate, that sucks. BKFC, you have no option to be in a stalemate. You're getting separated and you're swinging for the fences, and that's what makes it entertaining. People love it.
What do you say when a buddy of yours, a friend of yours, training partner that hasn't done the BKFC, that has fought in the UFC or other MMA companies, and they go, man, Dustin, what's it like? What's the difference? What is the big difference from the fighter's perspective that you tell a buddy that wants to get into this?
It's a whole nother game, man. I mean, you know, in the UFC, we're used to getting elbowed in the face, kneed in the face, which is pretty serious, kicked in the face. But getting hit by a bare fist, man, it's a whole nother world. And if you're not prepared for that, if you're not mentally ready for that, that's what breaks people, man. You get hit with a fist and you're gushing blood out your face. It changes your whole perspective of the game. You know, so we're a rare breed of people that want to do this.
The thing that strikes me, and you're right, I've known a lot of fighters, and they told me, man, you get hit a couple of times, you get tapped out, you don't get hurt. Training is worse, right? You can avoid getting smoked in an MMA fight, right? Or as you stated, you get taken down, you get subbed. There's no avoiding getting smoked. And I want to get your take on the other side about this and ask, what's more important, to have the power or to have the effing chin? Because if you don't have a chin, you can't live in your world, right? Like, you guys are standing in a phone booth. Most of the fights are a minute and a half or two, and it's literally just rock and sock 'em. Like you said, that's a whole other world, man, than what a mixed martial art fight is. So we'll get Dustin's thoughts on this on his birthday. Awesome that he's joining us on the Combat Sports Report. Throw a couple of more questions at him and find out when he's going to be coming back next. The Combat Sports Report on the SportsGrid Radio and Television Network continuing.
Becoming just harder in general to do business from a money standpoint in general, let alone the competition. So yeah, Betfred closing up shop, will be gone by tomorrow. We'll see if any sportsbook fills this void. It'll mean that there's a license up for grabs in Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest states for sports betting and is home to a lot of other operators. At this point, we're getting to a time when no one's rushing into the market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It was already pretty solid up top, but you had the bottom that's that much better with Ryan O'Hearn and Lariano. Like, we now have a well-rounded lineup on top of a great pitching staff. Michael King is expected to start making his rehab starts. So you have him plus Pivetta plus Dylan Cease. You Darvish is back. You have the frontline pitching, the depth of the lineup, and now a great bullpen. You have it all.
I really like it. Like I do. Like sometimes I get caught up in the Padres because of what they can be.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Every time he's there, he just finds a way, and he's going to break through. Look at Cameron Young. Cameron Young was one of those guys, too. Remember Cameron Young? Second in the Open Championship. Fourth, plays great in majors. Almost won the Canadian Open again. I seen this guy play live. I'm like, how does this guy not have a win? And then last week, Kev, you saw what he did. He put his foot on your throat, wrestling style. He didn't just win. He murdered the competition last week.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
The Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabriel Morency. We're kicking it with BKFC badass Dustin Disciple Pague coming off his epic win against Ryan Henderson. So I wanted to, a lot of stuff I want to throw at you here about, you said it's a different type of fighter, right? Different type of fighter that does this. You're coming off the win against Ryan Peterson. I love how the respect that he had for you after the fight. On Instagram, which is super cool. And I guess when you trade paint like that with someone, you can't help but have that level of respect. Like you said, talk to me about the different type of breed that it takes to do this, as opposed to getting into an octagon. Who a lot of fighters, I know a lot of mixed martial artists told me, Morency, my goal is not to get hit. Right? A lot of MMA fighters don't like getting hit. If you don't like getting hit, you can't do BKFC point blank.
Oh, absolutely. Like in the MMA world, you have opportunities to negate getting hit more so than BKFC. You can get a takedown. You can secure a dominant position where you're less likely to get hit. And even if you are getting hit, they're less damaging because of your position. So there's opportunities, and especially when you get rocked, to protect yourself a little bit and kind of clinch up or secure a takedown to avoid that impact. But BKFC, if you're getting hit too much, you have one option: either take a knee or give up. And then even after you take that knee, you only have a few seconds and you got to get back to it. So you can't really run from getting hit in BKFC. And like I said, during my fighter interviews, they always say, what gives you the edge on this win, or what gives you the edge on this upcoming fight? And I always say, and they get kind of frustrated with my response, I said, I think I'm one of the toughest BKFC fighters on the roster, and I think my toughness helps me with victories. And they're like, oh no, come on, brag about yourself a little bit. Your movement, your speed, your power. I'm like, hey, toughness wins fights. And you've seen it in my last fight against Ryan. We were equally talented. He's a warrior. He's a phenomenal fighter, very tough, moves well, has everything it takes to be a great fighter. But I think my toughness won that fight. I think a lot of fighters would have stayed down after the problems I had with my eye. But you know what? I take a licking and keep on ticking, like I say.
And mental toughness is the key, isn't it, Dustin, right? And I want to ask you about
100%.
that. you're on the Ultimate Fighter, you're a younger guy, you know, you're walking into the MGM Grand, and it's like, whoa, the UFC. And so you go through that and, you know, have to be nervous, right? Now you're a grown man. How much does it help you, your experience being on TV, fighting and knowing in all, whatever you do in all walks of life, we get better the more we do it, right? And how much different are you now? Like, I imagine you're on the Ultimate Fighter, you're fighting MGM that night. How much were you pacing backstage? I've seen fighters, dude, they extend all their energy before the damn fight, right? Some guys, they're nervous, or they're you know what I mean? And like they're tight, and it's like they walk out and then they got rubber arms, right? You know what I mean? They get that dead arm, and they're like, man, I psyched myself out. I thought about it so much before the fight. Now when you come out, bro, it looks like you're in your domain. You're on the stage and you're walking out and you're soaking up the moment as opposed to being, oh my God, this is the moment. How much different is it for you now? How much has that helped you, that experience now?
It's funny. I think fighter experience is huge when it comes to the mental aspect. And obviously I've had 50 plus fights in my career. I still get nervous every single fight. But it is different. I think my confidence has changed more than anything, because I realized that I fought some of the best fighters in the world at a young age. And, you know, so I say to myself, what's the worst that can happen? I've seen it all. I've pretty much seen it all. I've seen every aspect of this game. So that really builds my confidence. So I don't think I'm going to see anything different. So what to expect, it kind of eases the nerves a little bit. And at the end of the day, I love what I do. So I try to soak up every moment, every part of the journey. I try to soak up and enjoy and know that one day I won't have it. So that's kind of my mindset.
And it seems to me right now, before we get you out of here, that you want the belt, right? You said you think you could be the best. Sure. You're not here just to fight. You want the prizes that come with it, right?
Yep, that's my long-term goal, is to have that belt around my waist, and I think I'm getting closer and closer to it each fight. It sounded like Dave Feldman wants to give me the shot based on what he said after my last fight. I'm hoping that he sticks to that, and from what I'm hearing, that's what's next for me. So I'm not getting my hopes up, but I'm hopeful.
Well, you know what? I think the fight fans want to see it, and I think you deserve it, coming off that epic win. And, you know, the fight game is about giving the people what they want. And, if you watch Dustin fight, he's going to bring it. Happy birthday, my man. Looking good. Like I said, looking good for the age. And I know you're feeling good right now, so I'm stoked for you and continued success. I've been a fan. I've been following your career, since the early days. So to see where it's come right now, awesome stuff. We wish you continued success, my man.
I appreciate it, Gabe. I appreciate you guys having me on. God bless you all. And keep watching, because it's only going to get better.
Great stuff. Happy birthday, Dustin. There's Dustin, the disciple. Pague. Awesome stuff with Dustin. Really, really enjoyed that stuff. Love the passion of these fighters. And, man, like BKFC, it's almost like, people think, like hockey's crazy, right? And it's like, hockey players are pretty tough and they lose their teeth. Every hockey player, like in Canada, has a crazier brother that plays lacrosse, right? And it's like, you think I'm crazy. Yeah, he's my brother, man. Being a guy's a lacrosse player, he's a psychopath. There's like levels to this stuff where it's like, oh my God, you're going to be a mixed martial artist. Then you take it to the next level of the bare knuckle, but you got to love it. Like I said, man, I'm not going to name names. I know a big time MMA fighter. He told me the number one goal, Morency, for me is not to get punched in the face. He goes, I don't like getting punched in the face. He would not be able to do BKFC, but this guy's one of the biggest badasses in the world, right? That's it's tough ass stuff, man. It's a hard ass way to make a living. Combat Sports Report continues.
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
I was that confused trying to figure out why Cameron Young isn't as good as he should be, because we've seen all the flashes. Like at some point of his career, he's been elite at something. Like he's been elite at putting this year. He's been an elite iron player. He's been an elite driver of the golf ball. So check out this chart I had to get.
We got a chart.
Look at this chart that I had to come up with.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Every time he's there, he just finds a way, and he's going to break through. Look at Cameron Young. Cameron Young was one of those guys, too. Remember Cameron Young? Second in the Open Championship, fourth, like plays great in majors, almost won the Canadian Open again. I seen this guy play live. I'm like, how does this guy not have a win? And then last week, Kev, you saw what he did. He put his foot on your throat, wrestling style. He didn't just win, he murdered the competition last week.
Game time decisions, only on
Combat Sports Report continues and winds down. Thanks to Dustin the Disciple Pague for kicking it with us, and Lynch on Sports, James Lynch. Great stuff with both of them. We'll try to continue to get you as many cool guests as we can. And BKFC is actually going to be in Edmonton this week. So Edmonton is the place to be. And you've got the Wild Boy, Drew Stuve, undefeated, taking on Will Santiago. It's going to be a big-time throwdown at Edmonton. Like Dustin stated, too, and all these cards, even the new fighters, dude, it's, you're getting two dudes just going all out. And to me, the most important thing with the success of these fight leagues is betting. People like carnage, and people like to bet on it, right? Just point blank. And BKFC betting is taking off more and more and more. Sports books have it, right? So that's the key to success for a lot of these new fight leagues. They get credibility through betting, right? People bet on it. They want to follow it. They start winning on it. They lose. They want to get their money back on it. And then they get engaged with the company. There's a reason why the UFC embraced gambling as much as they did, right? I mean, years ago, they didn't have that, right? I mean, the game, gaming, gambling, sports betting wasn't as mainstream as it is now, but Dana White and the UFC were early got it, and said, you know what? Put the odds up of the fight, right? Let people know that, people are betting on this. It makes it seem bigger, right? People want to bet on it. Sports books are taking bets on it, right? And BKFC, millions of followers on Instagram. It seems to be their thing, Instagram. It's a very visual, they're kicking ass on Instagram and social media, we'll tell you that. Chad Lucanis and Tim Tamaki on Saturday in Edmonton as well, and you got Kotok and Meister. So there's a full card here, full slate of fights in Edmonton. You can go to bkfc.com to get your tickets. August the 9th. So yeah, it's pretty cool of Dustin Pague to join us on his birthday. My birthday is actually August the 10th. So big fight weekend this weekend. We got the UFC as well. We gave you a couple of picks earlier for the UFC card. Obviously, you want to see the weigh-ins and you want to soak it all in. But we talked about it. It's a very chalky card this week. But I think there's a couple of opportunities with the totals. The main event, the Hernandez fight, I think goes over 3.5. I think Hernandez is going to win, too. James Lynch talked about liking Hernandez via decision, which I don't think is a bad look at all. Lynch also thought that if you missed his segment with us, he actually thought that Steve Erceg was too big of a favorite and that Osborne could be a live dog here. I think Erceg probably wins, but there's no way in hell I'm laying minus 550. I think that Angela Hill is a live dog at plus 170. The fight is going to go the distance, so in other words, it's going to be in the judge's hands. And if it's in the judge's hands, then the underdog has a shot to win the fight. Eric Anders and Leroy Duncan. This is going to be a fun throwdown. The total, 2.5, minus 190. I do think this fight's going to go the distance. I know that Duncan's got power, but Anders does have a chin. And James talked about Eric Anders admitting that he had some substance issues and that he's more focused right now. Let's be real. I mean, he doesn't have that much racetrack left, right? So is he going to win the fight? Probably not. He's a 400 underdog. But I think we're going to get a good effort from Eric Anders. And I am tempted by the plus 400 just to sort of catch lightning in a bottle. We see sometimes fighters. I mean, hell, I thought Andrei Arlovsky was done like 10 times in his career. And then the guy kept rattling off, these wins. But fighters often have that one last sort of, you know what? I'm clean. I'm focused. I got one win in me here. So that's a plus 400 underdog right there. Intriguing fight. But, man, it's such a chalky card. Julius Walker, minus 600, right? I mean, this, like I said, it's going to be the parlay special. I do like Matsumoto to beat Miles Johns. This fight, though, minus 300. You know what? We'll go Matsumoto to win via decision. That's minus 125. You know what? Matsumoto to win via decision, minus 125 in the Battle of the Dana White Contender Series fighters. So thanks to all of our guests. Thanks to the crew. We'll try to step in. Mafia did a great job on the show. We'll try to keep it rolling. I know the show was very popular. We'll do our best, and we'll try to get as many fighters on as we can because I miss talking to the fighters. Love talking to the fighters. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.
Care where you were drafted. You outperformed somebody, you're going to be on that football field. Now, again, there are extenuating circumstances where he drafted quarterback number 3 overall. Yeah, they're going to try him out for the next 3 to 4 years, even if he's not as good as anybody on that roster. But from Shadur's perspective, that's probably the case. Tyler Huntley, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of names on that list, not a lot of good names on that list, so he can earn a job on this football team.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Becoming just harder in general to do business from a money standpoint in general, let alone the competition. So yeah, Betfred closing up shop will be gone by tomorrow. We'll see if any sportsbook fills this void. It'll mean that there's a license up for grabs in Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest states for sports betting and is home to a lot of other operators. At this point, we're getting to a time when no one's rushing into the market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
I was that confused trying to figure out why Cameron Young isn't as good as he should be, because we've seen all the flashes. Like at some point of his career, he's been elite at something. Like he's been elite at putting this year. He's been an elite iron player. He's been an elite driver of the golf ball. So check out this chart I had to get.
We got a chart.
Look at this chart that I had to come up with.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid, your road